In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 clear signs that someone has a fearful avoidant attachment style. From the outside, it is very confusing because those people, they tend to come across as dismissive avoidant. I used to be dismissive avoidant and I'm making a lot of videos about dismissive avoidant. But because you asked me to do a lot of videos on fearful avoidant, I've decided to cover this attachment style. And in this video, I'm going to explain the differences, the subtle differences between dismissive avoidant and fearful avoidant. Jiggle.
igetmyexback.com. Everyone deserves a second chance.
But let's start with understanding attachment style or attachment theory developed by the psychologist John Bowlby. And he found out that our early relationship will shape the approach we have with our future relationships. So the way we behave with our parents will be kind of the same as the way we behave with our partner in the future. And we now have 4 major attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, which were the 3 ones found out and developed by John Bowlby. The 4th one came a little bit after, the fearful avoidant attachment style, one we'll discuss today in this video. First of all, before I explain everything, if you're not sure about your attachment style, if you want to assess your partner's attachment style, I put together what is called the ECR-R Assessment, which is the standardized assessment to test your attachment style, developed by John Bowlby. If you want to have a look, check in the description. It's totally free and you get the results right away. So, 4 attachment styles, and the one way to look at them is looking at the anxiety and the avoidance. So, people who are secure, they tend to be moderately or not anxious, not avoidant with their partner, and not anxious. So they're not going to avoid confrontation or avoid talking about their feelings, and they won't be anxious, have the fear that their partner will leave them. Anxious, preoccupied, they have low avoidance and high anxiety, so they tend to be clingy and needy. Again, when I say those things, it's just to make a point, just to generalize and make it very simplistic for you to understand. Dismissive avoidant, low anxiety. I'm never anxious. I'm never, stressed about the relationship. But I would tend to avoid things. I don't want to talk about things. I don't want to confront things, and so I would avoid things. The fearful avoidant is very specific because they are high anxiety and high avoidance, which could be perceived as something that are opposite. How can you be severely, very anxious and very avoidant at the same time? And this is the problem, the internal battle that fearful avoidant will have and will have to confront themselves on that. And obviously, the objective of this video is to give you some tips and practical things you could be doing if you want to develop a secure attachment style, if you feel that you are fearful avoidant. And so, fearful avoidant is where you crave intimacy, but at the same time you're scared of getting too close. And we'll see in a second that it always comes from past traumas or micro traumas or inconsistent caregiving. As we described at the beginning, our childhood will sort of inform how we behave with our partner. Does it mean that it will always be like this? No, otherwise I wouldn't have a job, otherwise therapy wouldn't exist. Yes, you can change, you can develop a secure attachment style. It's not set in stone, it's just the idea of looking at your childhood is to understand where it comes from. And so, really quick one on past trauma. And I've had this question, so I'm addressing this one. Developing an attachment style is not always about your childhood. It could be also done from different negative experiences early in your adulthood with different and difficult relationships. The point that I want to make here is that when you are working on your attachment style, you don't need years of therapy. The whole point of my work and the work that I do with Elizabeth is to really use your past experiences to inform about your behaviors. The whole point of my work is, 10% of the time, usually the first session we have together, it's understanding those mechanisms. Then the whole point is like, how can you implement changes? How can you sort of overwrite those years of programming those limited beliefs that you've developed because of the different relationships that you had with your parents, with different partners, how can you override that and replace it with something like kind of a secure response? And that's really about like present time, future time. Okay, so it's very important for you to assess if you have had traumatic experiences. Yes, you need to go and see a therapist and discuss those things. A lot of my clients, they have a therapist, but it's just a question of like, okay, now that I have this information, rather than sort of dwelling on the past, it's about like, okay, now that I know that and I want to sort of escape from this sort of framework, let's plan something where I can sort of reprogram those things and see things differently and behave differently with my partners. I close this part. Let's start with the first sign. Sign number 1, as I discussed in the intro, craving closeness but pushing it away. And so that's the thing that is very confusing when you date someone avoidant, is that one day they have this sort of push-pull. The inside, sort of the internal dialogue here is like you long for deep connection, but every time it's too intimate, it's scary. When you get too close to this person, it's sort of, that can't be true. And so the difficulty when you date someone fearful avoidant, this push-pull is sometimes very typical of avoidance. But the thing is, the avoidant, they won't feel scared by the intimacy. They just don't want to be intimate with someone. They just feel like, that's not what I want to do. For fearful avoidant, there's something around that's a danger. If I go to this place, to this place of intimacy, if I open up too much, if I trust this person, I'm going to get hurt. And we're going to discuss this in the other signs. Sign number 2 is obviously highly sensitive to rejection. And so when they think about rejection, they will always distance themselves, in a way proactively, before anything happens. And so that's the reason sometimes people who have fearful avoidant attachment style, they overreact. They find the little things in the conversation, in the behavior, to feel like, okay, I'm getting rejected, I'm not getting treated properly, I can't trust this person. It's always the thing that you assume the worst. You default the relationship with your partner as something where the baseline is like, this person is going to hurt me. This person, I can't trust this person, because as soon as I get closer to this person, they're going to push me back, they're going to reject me, they're going to downplay me, and so on and so forth. And this is very much linked to, again, as we discussed, childhood or early relationships in the past. Okay, and so what we call in attachment theory working models, it's the idea of like a relationship. My definition of a relationship is that I'm fine with the relationship when I don't open up, when I don't commit, when I keep the person at an arm's length. But in the past, every time I said someone I love you, or I sort of create a bit for affection and intimacy, etc., I was pushed back, I was rejected. So I don't want this in my life. I don't want to experience this with my partner now that I'm an adult. So as you see, it's really about how we can recognize those working models with the aim of, okay, understanding, hold on. By the way, only 5% of people are fearful avoidant. So how can I make sure that I become one of the 95%? And I'm saying this because it's important for you to know, if you have a fearful avoidant attachment style, that yes, it's quite unusual, but in a way, 95% of people are not. So they're not superhumans. You can do it. It's just a question of looking at things differently. Sign number 3 is the emotional swings in relationships. And it is very, very tricky to handle if you have a fearful avoidant attachment style. One day you'll feel like, I'm in love with that person, he is the one, she is the one, I want to see him or her every single day. And the next day, 24 hours after, you feel like, no, I don't want to see that person. And they're going to swing back and forth. And let me know actually in the comment section if you feel this way, because it's very interesting. Back and forth about those things. And it's very hard to manage if you have a fearful avoidant attachment style for your partner, because they're feeling like, what should I do? Because I haven't done anything, I haven't changed, I haven't said anything wrong or anything different than usual, the day before, they were madly in love, they were super like, wanted to hug, wanted to spend time together. The next day, they won't be gone. And so it's going to be very hard for a partner, if you have this fearful avoidant attachment style, to manage those swings. And very often, this is the reason people break up with fearful avoidant people, because they just can't make it work. They feel like, I have feelings for this person, I know they have feelings for me, but for some reason, they keep on breaking things up, or they keep on making it more difficult than it needs to be. Sign number 4, it's obviously trust issues. And this is, again, coming back from past betrayals, where we feel, I can't trust people. Because in the past, I did, and it didn't work out. And therefore, I think people are bad, genuinely. I feel I can't trust anyone, right? And this idea of things will repeat, because in the past it was the same. And I had this constant feedback about the definition of trust. Anytime I trusted people, anytime I trusted my parents, they failed me. So for me, this will be the same with you, especially if I open up, especially if I'm intimate with this person. And the problem is, when you have these trust issues, you can't form intimate relationship. You can't form, close bonds with your partner. If you look at any sort of books on relationship, trust, you talk about trust. It's communication and trust. That's the only things people talk about when they talk about relationship, if you read relationship books. But it's important, obviously. And so, again, what I want you to understand is this voice in your head. Every time I trusted someone, I got hurt. Understand that it is based on one experience, or maybe different experiences. But that doesn't mean that this will always happen. It's not because it happened in the past, and maybe it happened in the past few times, that it will happen in the future. Because as I said, 95% of people won't have this experience. It's not down to you, it's just down to the perception. Sign number 5, and bear with me till the end, because after I'm going to share some tips. Over-reliance on self, and this is very much an avoidant trait. So you've learned to rely on yourself as a young person. Anytime I had this emotional beat and I was rejected, okay, I have to deal with myself, right? And so very often people who have a fearful avoidant attachment style, they will isolate themselves and, again, prevent any form of connection with their partner. And that's why very often people are confused with fearful avoidant, because this sign is very much visible. It's very much like, he doesn't want to see me, she doesn't want to open up, therefore they're dismissive avoidant. The thing that we don't see is this inner voices, this craving for intimacy when you date someone fearful avoidant. So these were the 5 signs. And let me know in the comment section, by the way, if you feel you relate to your experiences, or if you relate to your partner's experiences or your partner's traits. Let's use this as a sort of a forum for us to discuss about those topics. And so these traits will have a significant impact, negative impact on relationships. And that will create a lot of dissatisfaction, that will create a lot of breakups, and perhaps that's the reason you're watching this video, because it's very hard for you to have healthy relationship, either with your partner because they are fearful, or with other partners if you have a fearful avoidant side. Because it's going to be hard for you to move on if you have this attachment style. It's going to be very hard for you to make the relationship progress. And if you're dating someone fearful avoidant, is, again, how do you function? What shall I do for you to trust me? What shall I do for us to connect at a deeper level and move forward together? The good news is that attachment can evolve. You are not bound to be fearful avoidant for the rest of your life. And that's why you have attachment-based therapy, that's why you have CBT. My point here is for you, and that's why I'm making those videos, is for you to gain that self-awareness. Right now you're kind of the bottom of the pyramid of self-awareness. You know that you have a fearful avoidant attachment style. And that's the first point, because very often I have this feedback, if only I knew that before. So now you know it. You can recognize those signs, you can recognize those traits, those mechanisms, Now the next step, and I will explain a few tips in the next slide, is also to find a rock or multiple rocks or people you can trust, so you can learn to gradually trust people. Okay, you really need, it's not something you can do on your own. That's why you can do it with a therapist, with friends, confidant, etc. Obviously with a therapist that will be more sort of structured, and so they have the expertise to help you sort of navigate this space, and it doesn't have to be me, it could be anyone else, but it's very important for you to find someone, find people who can help you and show you the way. Few practical tips. First one is self-compassion. Very often people who have a fearful-avoidant attachment, I'm struggling to say this word, fearful-avoidant attachment, they have a negative view of themselves. Because that's how their relationship with their parents, or when they were little, they were reflected this bad image of themselves. It's also understanding that when you have a feeling, a negative emotion, this is only a signal. An emotion is not the definition. You're not defined by your emotion. An emotion is just a signal. And understanding that if you feel a certain way, that's just a signal telling you, okay, you feel a certain way, let's analyze this, but that doesn't define you. Another element very important is small steps. I said it very often in my videos. It sounds a bit cliche. But the problem is, people have this realization of, oh, okay, I'm fearful avoidant, I'm dismissive avoidant, I'm anxious preoccupied. Okay, cool. Now what do you do about it? What's your plan? Who is going to be there for you to make that progress, to sort of evolve, right? And it doesn't have to be huge steps, as long as you make progress every single day. If you approach things in a way of every single day, I will be 1% more secure than the day before, never going to fail. Another element is about trust, obviously, when you have a fearful avoidant attachment style. Again, it's by gaining that trust with small incremental steps. Very often, people who have a fearful avoidant attachment style, they will have big gestures and they will freak out very quickly because they will open up very quickly and they will sort of trigger this element of, whoa, 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 it's scary. So take things slowly. If you're trying to get back with your ex, take things slowly. If you're dating someone for the first time, if you're dating, the dating process right now, take your time. Don't rush things. Don't assume that this person is the worst. Don't assume that this person is the one. You don't know. Sort of work out the relationship step by step and develop that trust and intimacy step by step. Also, one last word. If you have a fearful avoidant attachment style, this is obviously the hardest to deal with. And I can guarantee you that if you work only on this aspect, focusing only on this will change your life. Because this swing sort of back and forth, this sort of craving for intimacy, but at the same time, very scared of being intimate. If you work on this, trust me, the result on your personal life, but even your professional life, all aspects of your life will be huge. Way more than if you have an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style. Because as soon as you start looking at things from a secure point of view, trust me, your life will be so much different. Imagine how you could see things where you can trust people, when you're not scared, when you don't feel like I need to isolate myself. It is a game changer. It takes a bit of time. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen just watching my videos or other videos online. You have to do the work. But while it's not something that happens overnight, the process itself is quite enjoyable. If you make progress every single day, and you can make progress every single day, you will love the process because you will feel like, okay, I have you will develop this sense of self-efficacy. I can do it. And regardless of your past, regardless of your history, regardless of your character, everybody can do it as long as you have a plan, a willingness to do the work. And I think that's it. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comment section and have a look in the description. There are a few resources if you want to learn more. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.